To dress the drum, you want as flat a surface as you can get. If you have access to a piece of granite countertop or very flat plywood, that's the best thing. You glue down a piece of 50 or 60 grit sandpaper. I wouldn't use anything finer than 60 grit because that can tend to overheat the drum. It won't sand it very much. Coarser can leave some pretty heavy lines in your drum. You want to take your fan belt off the machine because with the fan belt it makes so much noise you won't be able to hear how much you're dressing that drum. If you got a recovered drum from us, it will come with shims in it already. If not, you will need to put sandpaper shims in the drum equivalent to the weight of the sandpaper that you normally run on it. Otherwise it will be out of balance because it will be lighter in this spot and you will get vibration from that, which will cause it to dress unevenly. Typically on the American 8s and 12s you'll be running around 4 shims, 80 or 100 grit depending on what's tight in the drum clamps. Because this is a 3-phase machine for use on a rider, we need to check the motor rotation each time we plug it in. We need to make sure that it is spinning this direction. If it's spinning backwards, that can be dangerous because it will push back on the machine and knock you over when you go to dress the drum. So always double check that if you're working with a 3-phase machine. Before we can start dressing the drum, we need a point of reference. So what we're going to do is we're going to start it up and put crayon on the red drum. We use a white crayon. You can use chalk as well, or even old sanding dust, just something to color that drum differently so we can see the fresh red rubber compared to the dirty drum and see where it's actually contacting the floor. Next, we're going to very lightly dress that drum against the floor on that sandpaper we glued down previously and see where it's contacting. We can see the fresh red sanding dust right here to see that it's hitting a little bit harder on the left-hand side than the right-hand side. So we're going to need to raise the left-hand side up just a little bit. On this machine, the adjustment bolt is this cam right here. The same will be on an American 8 if you're working on a standard 8 or standard 12. It can be in numerous different locations. There may be a adjustment bolt in through this access port here, or you may have to flip the machine upside down and there could be a different type of adjustment in your wheel truck itself. You want to put a reference mark here where you started. There's a jam bolt here that prevents it from moving on its own. We loosen that up. And then we can turn this cam and watch which direction it moves. In this case, that dropped it down a little bit. That's the wrong direction. So we want to go clockwise to raise this side up. You only want to move that mark about 1/8 of an inch because we're very close to where we need to be. We can see from how light that dust is and how far in it goes. If you're only hitting on the very edge, then you're going to need to move it more. If you're closer to all the way across the drum, it's less. So it may take several adjustments to get it where it needs to go. First we want to clean this off so that we have a fresh point of reference. If we have visible red here and we removed all of our chalk, we'll need to reapply that so that we know where we're starting out. We can see here from the red in this section here You'll be able to see it better as the machine slows down. That we're hitting in this stretch here, so we still need to raise that up a little bit more. But you can also see a little contact here. So we don't want to go too much because we are already pretty close. We can see by the heavy contact on the right hand side that we moved it just a little bit too far, so we need to back it off a little bit. We can see from the red lines in the very center of the drum that we're pretty well leveled. So now we want to dress that drum until it's even all the way around. We very lightly drop that drum so you can hear it slapping lightly. Do not let the full pressure of the drum down on the sandpaper. That will overheat the rubber. And we rock it gently side to side to avoid lines around the drum. We can see here that we are still slightly heavy on the right hand side, but we've got some unevenness here on the left. You can see that it's sanded fully here, but we're still got a big gaps here where it has not sanded. That means this part is high and this here is low. We are getting closer, but you can still see some white. As it slows down, we'll be able to see how much. We have two little spots here that are going to need a little more attention, so we're going to keep going until that's fully red all the way around. Now you can see we are round all the way around. We don't have any high or low spots. We're going to feather the edges here now because you can get a sharp edge here that will leave edge lines from your sandpaper. We want to round these corners and feather it out just a little bit, from about an inch out. To feather the edges, we use a block of wood with a 40 or 50 grit sandpaper glued to it. We just very gently sand this out and then round this corner. do the same on the other side. Now we're all done dressing this drum. This drum is currently set to cut perfectly flat. If you prefer to have a cut side on one side or the other, you'll need to readjust the leveling bolt to set one side to cut a little bit harder than the other. You only want to do that for drum sanders, never for a belt sander, because cutting heavier on one side than the other with a belt sander will push that sandpaper sideways.